Welcome to Anchoring the Consciousness of Oneness World Summit. Today we have Rochelle Seltzer with us. Rochelle is a creative core coach and the author of Live Big, a manifesto for a creative life. She coaches accomplished women who are stuck, figuring out what's next, or navigating a major life transition to become powerful creators in their lives and live big. After spending more than 30 years in the design and marketing industry, she began studying creativity and learned how to unlock her own creativity and also help others to unblock theirs. So hi, Rochelle. Thank you so much for being here today. I have been excitedly awaiting this interview with you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Delighted to be talking to you.
Thank you. So I have your book here. It's not only beautiful, but there's some wonderful information in here. And you see, I have all of these little Post-it notes. I have notes all in here. I showed this book to my brother, who was a designer, and as soon as he saw it, he asked, "Is this author a designer?" I said, "Well, yeah," and so much more. So yeah. And so having the background in design, I mean, it's clear because there's so many. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Yeah. So if you could share with the viewers your journey from having the career in design and then moving into what you're doing now. How did you get here?
Oh, okay. I'll try not to make this too long of a story, Sarah. I started my career in design because I loved art, but I was not feeling very confident at all about being a creator. And I know that sounds so contradictory, but the truth is that design was a safe choice for me because you've got clients who have problems and you solve their problems. Whereas you walk into a painting studio or a sculpting studio and you've got to create from something inside of you, from nothing. And that was something impossible for me to do. So I did go into design. It was a very satisfying career for a long time. Started my own firm and I owned it for 27 years. And I hired a coach when we were going through the last recession in 2009. And I'd never had any kind of help before, but at that point, the economy was in such trouble. I was fortunate enough to meet somebody who worked with creative firms, and I hired him. And the thing I never saw coming, I thought I was hiring him to give us better strategies and positioning ideas and marketing ideas. The work was really centered on me as the leader of the firm. It was a small business. We were 6 people in the business, so not inconsequential to have other people's livelihoods that were depending on me and, all of that pressure. And really the work started around how did I lead my clients? How did I lead my team? How did I show up in my marketing? How did I show up in my life? And that's really where the work was to be done. And it's in tackling that with, a skilled, wonderful coach that, first of all, things got better. Things got better in the business and things got better in my life. But it also pointed me to the fact that I was really just continuing to stay in the business the way that I had been because it was there and that it wasn't really lighting me up anymore. So while I was very grateful that we were successfully, making our way through a rough economic time. I made the decision that I wanted to find more fulfillment every day in my life. I wanted to wake up every day and feel more lit up than I was feeling.
That is such a brave thing to do. Most people, and I don't want to put people in categories. That's not very nice or much fun. But we all, in humanity, collectively, go through this where we feel uninspired or unfulfilled in some way, and then we think about that and we think, well, how can I change it? And then many times, because we kind of stay where what is known, we don't get to explore outside of what we know because we don't have the tools or we don't have the roadmap. So how did you figure all of this out? You said you hired a coach.
Well, I did. And for me, that was an incredible breakthrough because my family story was that you should be able to do everything yourself. If you work hard enough and you're smart, you shouldn't need help. And so just the idea of having engaged this coach was a really big moment for me. And it was in that work that I realized that I deserved to, this foundational work that I do now about self-love, that I was deserving of finding that level of satisfaction in my daily work. And I was very, very grateful to have a wonderful marriage and family, but your professional life is, big proportion of how you spend your time. And it was important to me. And I wanted to do something that was going to really, really satisfy something that wasn't being satisfied anymore. So I didn't know what it was going to be, but
Right.
I guess I took I believed in myself. And maybe part of believing in myself was also easier because I did have a good coach who was there to support me. And I did have a spouse, my husband, who believed in me and was totally in my corner. So I was lucky.
Yeah, I talk about this all of the time in my own work. If there's external conflict or not a good support system in your environment, or even internal conflict, and you're not supporting yourself in some way by reaching out for help, then your possibilities are limited. So both of those things together happening for you was a wonderful catalyst, right? And
Yes.
also, gosh, and just you have taken everything that you've learned, back from then, and brought it into what you're doing now. And I mean, so would you say that this book, I mean, let me just start. Let me just start on the first sticky note that I have here, because, oh my gosh, be true to your heart. I mean, we're talking about how to live big. Was this how these steps in here, was this how you came to discover what you wanted to be doing now?
No, actually.
No. Okay.
So my coach invited me to a workshop that he was hosting. He
Okay.
had met somebody who impressed him, and I flew out to the West Coast from Boston, and it was an intuitive painting workshop. And it was kind of terrifying because I told you, I just didn't think that I could do anything creative that wasn't an assignment.
Right.
But I bravely went, and part of that is the trust that I had in my coach, that he would not encourage me to fly 3,000 miles for something that wasn't going to be really worthwhile. And it was incredibly exciting and very, very liberating for me to realize that this way of approaching creativity was something that I could do and that I could love. And I went to another workshop with the same teacher. He's from Israel. And eventually I studied with him for 2 years because I realized I had just sold my business and I was open and I was ready. And I said, I think this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to figure this out. This has always been a lifelong kind of challenge for me. Why don't I dive in and figure this out? And I just trusted that that was going to be a step on a path to something. And what it was a step on a path to, I studied psychocreativity as well as intuitive painting with him. And I realized that coaching had been the thing that had changed my life so much. And what I wanted to do was create a coaching practice based on this power that we all came into the world with, this huge well of creativity. And it was in figuring out that whole coaching practice and being mentored by my coach, actually, to develop this into a coaching practice. And in working with him, I said, how do I explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it? I need help. And in the course of a few days of working with him, he was asking me a series of questions. And the bottom line, he said, is, well, what is it that you teach people? And I said, well, I guess I teach people to live big, to stop living small and to really live a big, fully created life. And that's where it came from. And it was in following up that conversation that he challenged me. He said, well, how do you live big? And that's where each chapter in this book. So in the book, you've already seen, Sarah, that my tool is the Discovery Dozen. And so I did a Discovery Dozen to say, how do I live big in a dozen ways? And then I expanded it to 20 ways and then 30 ways. And I started writing about each of those ideas. And I picked the 10 ways of being and the 10 ways of doing that I consider the essence of living big. And those are the chapters in the book.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's wonderful. Yes, because we don't often think about being versus doing, right? so, so how would you describe, like, being versus doing? I mean, you've kind of split the book in half, and one is just about, being who you are, or sitting in the present moment, or absorbing information, or doing nothing, right? And that's the being part.
So I always say that we're human beings and we spend most of our time doing and not enough time being.
Yeah.
And that really it's the state of who do I need to be in my life that is the foundation for everything else, for what I want to do and what I want to have. So how are we showing up?
Yeah.
And
Like, what do you stand for, right?
yeah, and I've got my copy of the book here, so I'll just open up to the table of contents. This idea of the first chapter in the book is slow down and be still. And I consider that a foundation for everything in this book, because we spend our lives being in perpetual motion, multitasking, focus on productivity and how much can you get done in a day and how hard do you work and how hard do you drive yourself. And when you live that way, that state of being is a state of being in perpetual motion and never reflecting, never connecting to your intuition, and never considering what your options are. And I talk about the fact that creation and reaction have the same letters.
Yes, I saw that. I was like, wow, I
Yeah,
never
I
even
know.
considered that.
So if we want to be creators instead of people who react all the time, we have to learn to slow down and to give it some thought and to pay attention.
That's so interesting, especially what's going on in the world right now. We have been reacting to the media. We have been reacting to the pandemic. We have been reacting to social injustice. Um, and so, we go through, I mean, it's triggering. It is.
Hmm.
And that's something that we have to honor. But you said create instead of create. So that's more like responding, but doing that from in.
Well, when I talk about creation, I think about it in two ways, and I know I'm digressing a little bit, but I'll get back to your first question about the being. There's creative expression, and creative expression of any kind is fantastic and really an element that I encourage everybody to build into their lives with intention, whether that's digging in your garden or playing an instrument or any way that you think about something that lights you up and that brings you joy. And then there's the creative mindset, this appreciation of yourself as a creator, as a creative person, a creative being who can create instead of reacting. So can look at options and say, wait a minute, what do I want to create now? What's the best decision for me to create as the next step forward? What's the next best opportunity that I can recommend, or whatever it may be? And it's a different way of thinking. So that's
A hard way of thinking, right? It pulls you right out of victim mentality. And
oh,
right.
absolutely. It gives you agency in your life.
Right.
It's amazing. So in the being of living big, so slowing down and being able to be still, living in the present as opposed to, rehashing the past with regret or rumination, or fast forwarding to the future without being here now and making the most of what's here now. Loving more, self-love, love for others, love as an orientation to the world. It's such a powerful force and a wonderful way of being in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being true to your heart is really, what is your heart yearning for? What are those messages there? Where's the desire? What's important to you, not to, the society's, expectations or your family's expectations or what your second grade teacher told you that you've never forgotten, but what's really in your own heart.
Right. So that is a really difficult journey for some people. I mean, we are products of our culture, our society, or our systems, right? All of the systems, the family system, the school system. I mean, our country, our politics, our ethnicity, all of it. And so I really loved this. It says, I trust my heart. That's what you wrote. And it is so important because when you can do that and you move from the mind into the heart space, you get to kind of bypass, even if it's just, when you're just practicing for the first time or something, you still get, the door sort of creaks open, right? And you get to kind of see past the defense mechanisms that were created when in childhood. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it takes a little courage to do that.
Right.
And trust in yourself and trust that your heart is full of wisdom and important messages for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and you said that everyone is creative, and this is something that I really want people to I want it to sink in. I want them to absorb it, and I want it to resonate because everyone is creative. And if that is the case, I mean, we are, you know, we are 7.5 billion pieces of divinity, right?
Oh, I beautifully said. Yeah.
And we're here for a reason, and we have incredible gifts to share. Um, and that's true for every single person.
Yes. Because most people believe that those creative people are those special people, those people who are, the famous composers or painters or actors or whatever. And the truth is that we all have that. It's available to everybody. And certainly there are some people that cultivate certain talents more or have more of certain talents. Um, I would never be able to be a great singer, but I can still enjoy singing. Or
Right.
maybe I could be a great singer. Maybe if I was important enough to me and I got lessons from somebody, I probably could be trained to a certain point. But I would never be a great opera singer. So there's a difference between having that extraordinary talent and being a creative person. And that's what I'm hoping that people can understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And what we desire, like if you had a desire to be that wonderful, singer that you've been dreaming of and being able to have a beautiful voice and whatever it is, then the desire alone, if you're passionate enough about it, then that is your gift. That is a gift. I don't want to say your gift because we don't just have one.
Right,
It's
with
a
many, many, many gifts.
many gifts. So it's a gift and it's worth exploring. So in being true to your heart, instead of thinking, oh, that is not a very responsible decision to make, is, thinking about a singing career or what have you, which it doesn't have to be a career, right?
If it gives you joy, then it's
Do
something to
it.
pursue. Yeah, just for yourself, for your own pleasure, without comparison, without judgment. Is
Right.
the piece that a lot of people miss. Yeah.
Yes. And so that brings me to a question for you. So those who are, really looking for ways to feel fulfilled and have more joy in their life, say, but I don't really want to waste my time on a hobby. The people who like, I want to be doing something that's going to give uh, dividends, pay dividends at the end. Um, what would you say to them in regards to like and taking the time out to do the things that your heart desires? um
Oh, it's a big question that you just asked. I believe um, that when you truly have a desire for something, and it could be, I mean, I'm thinking of a client of mine who is an executive, and she had a clarinet that she hadn't even opened the case of her instrument for 10 years. And it was like a piece of her that she had loved for many years through high school, through college. And she just let it kind of peter out because life got busy and she's, very accomplished in other ways. it was very intimidating to open that clarinet case again. But she did start listening to classical music on her commute to work and open that part of herself up, the love that she had for a certain kind of music. And then eventually she decided to take singing lessons and sing in a choir. But it was that piece of her that came alive and that has enriched her soul. I also believe that when you pursue something that gives you that level of joy and satisfaction, it opens your imagination. It kind of expands the way you see the world, because you're living something important that's inside of you. You're not keeping it shunted away and forgotten.
So what you're saying is that if you if you go after what you're passionate about, and you are creative in a way that feels good to you, then that opens the door to new possibilities where.
Absolutely. It
Mhm.
opens the way you think. It opens the way that you respond to things around you. It opens your sense of possibilities because you're lit up more, you're open more.
Yeah.
And we don't, many of us don't give ourselves the opportunity. And for you, it might be having a wood shop in your garage, or it could be anything. It doesn't have to be a classical way of creating. And some people find scrapbooking or knitting to be just that way of the tactile experience with fibers and picking colors and seeing things unfold that you've made with your own hands. I mean, there's a million different ways that you can have that experience in a way that is meaningful to you.
Yes. I paint, and I'm not that good at it at all. But my father was an artist, and so I wanted to try to see what I could do, and it's really fun. I love it. The linear time disappears.
That's it. You get into flow. Yeah.
Mhm, yeah. And I'm proud of what I've created. And when I'm in the space in that zone, I am I am releasing a lot of emotion, or I am receiving inspiration that I'll take with me and carry into my
Yes.
writing work.
Yes.
Yeah, so the possibilities become available, when they weren't before.
Can I expand on what you just said about emotion?
Sure.
Because when we have a lot of emotion, and if it's frustration or anger or fear or anxiety, it needs a place to go. When it's just bottled up inside of us, it's so damaging and limiting. But if, let's say, you walked into the kitchen and you were about to make dinner and you said, I am going to like pull out this big cutting board. I am going to chop away at those vegetables and get that out. Or I'm going to dig in my garden and plant something new that I've been interested in, or pick up a paintbrush and maybe even take the ugliest color that you can find and just get it out on the canvas. You can offload it and you can transform that emotion. You can release it. You may not be rid of it forever. It may take several rounds of ugly paintings or chopping vegetables or whatever you choose to do, but it has an outlet, and you can actually give yourself some relief and some space and feel lighter and more open. And I had an experience about feeling so excited and elated when my first grandchild was born.
Mm.
I just didn't know what to do with it because there had been some tension around the end of the pregnancy, and would everything go okay? And everything did go okay. It went beautifully. And there was this overwhelming feeling of exploding with joy, and that needed to go somewhere too. And I started writing poems.
Wow.
And I just started expressing all my emotions through writing and the words. And it was a beautiful sense of relief, relief of all of that was put somewhere where I could appreciate it. And it wasn't bottled up anymore, but it had been given expression and space.
Oh, I love that. And that is profound what you're explaining right now, because when you're talking about you're talking about the release of emotion. It does not matter what the emotion is. It can feel positive, it can feel negative. I don't like to use good or bad, but it
But
doesn't
some
matter.
emotions are hard and some are great.
Yeah, and sometimes even the great emotions can be difficult. right?
Yeah.
And then we'll hit the ceiling of what we can live with and deal with. And then it has to have an outlet.
Yeah.
I love that, and that's the feeling free. That's the freedom that we get to
Yes.
feel when we finally find a way to release,
Yeah.
regardless of what the emotion is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Gosh, there's so many beautiful things in here. Right now, what's happening in the world is there's a lot of fear. It's building, and it's very difficult to know. Uh, People are struggling, trying to figure out what to even believe, um, because there's so much conflicting information. And I tend to describe it as like gaslighting. It's like when you are constantly getting fed different information and you don't know what to believe, it becomes very confusing. And that, raises the anxiety level and can also cause depression. But with everyone going through all of this fear and feeling so many different layers of it, um, you know, what would you say to them to just find your creative outlet, right? And find a way to release it.
Well, I think yes, but I would start with first of all limiting the amount of contact you have with what's distressing, because we live in a society where we're fed. I mean, the news media is so important, and responsible media, in my opinion, is doing something crucially important. Um, but their job is to keep churning out information and to keep giving us information that is somehow big, intense. They're not interested in giving us all the feel good stories. It's got to have some excitement to it. And then particularly when you think of social media, we can easily overwhelm ourselves. And I put myself on a news diet early in COVID because I said, I will learn what I need to learn in a short check-in with news in the morning and a short check-in at one other time in the day. And that's all I need to hear.
Mhm.
And if there's anything big and dramatic that goes on in the middle of the day, I'll hear about it either from somebody or soon enough after that it's, it's, it eclipses so much else when we expose ourselves to the constant play of news, and it builds the anxiety. So I think that that's one thing that we can definitely do. The other thing is processing what we're hearing and feeling. So that can be journaling, that can be taking a walk and just releasing it by being in nature and looking at the sky and having more contact with fresh air. There are ways that we can support ourselves to be able to process and cope with that, with what tends to overload us. And I believe that if we let ourselves get to a state where we're in a state of anxiety or distress, we're not doing the best for ourselves, but we're also not doing the important work that we're each here to do in the world. And the world needs all of us to continue to do what our gifts are there for us to do. And if we all become paralyzed by this distress, we're not only hurting ourselves, we're hurting everybody.
Yes. And this is one of the biggest reasons that I wanted to talk to you and wanted to have you share this information with everyone who is watching, because now, I mean, now you're speaking my language. We're talking about purpose, right? But yes, because when we don't step into our purpose, or when we don't fulfill, um, our service, because that's what we're doing, we're serving, and we don't offer our natural talents, gifts, and abilities to the world, we are doing a disservice to other people. And that is the basis of oneness, isn't it? We're all connected. And so we all, in our individual ways, um, if we have the desire to serve in a certain way, then we need to do it for everyone's sake.
Yes, and I truly, truly believe that there are ripple effects. When we do something that helps even just one other person, or enlighten someone in some way, or help somebody in any number of ways. We teach them something, we share an idea, we do whatever our work is in the world, whether we're healers, it doesn't matter, whether we're engineers, whatever it may be, but we do have a ripple effect. And so if we become limited by the anxiety and the stress, those ripple effects are diminished.
Yes. Gosh. It's so powerful. It's such a powerful truth. Um, it may feel impossible right now for people to go after their purpose, right? They're just like, we don't know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
It kind of reminds me of the when the economy tanked in 2008
Mhm.
or seven-ish, 7, 8.
2008, yeah.
Yeah, I froze. All I did was apply for jobs for 2 years. I didn't go out and try to step into my purpose. I was terrified. I couldn't do anything because all I was focusing on was my family's well-being. And that's serious. It's serious. You have to provide for your family, and for yourself and your loved ones. And otherwise it's disastrous. So, you know, when people are dealing with that level of fear, I wish that I had done something different. My friends went out and started businesses,
Mhm.
and they're still doing wonderful things. Their businesses have grown and expanded, and they're doing wonderful now. But it's okay because we're all doing it on our own. You can't really get this wrong, right? Right. But what would you say?
Comparing
Yeah,
ourselves to other people is never.
never a good thing. Yeah, exactly. But but looking back, and I don't have any regret.
Learn, right?
Right, you learn. It is a lesson
Yeah.
for sure. Um, but I would my dream, my desire really is for people to recognize that their gifts are so important, important enough that they can change the world in ways that they may not have an idea of yet. And
Yes.
for those looking for a way to do that, but they're paralyzed by fear, um, you know, and them understanding that that they are creative, they do have the gift, whatever it is, and to go for that. Because, oh gosh, if I don't have regrets, but I'm just thinking about, like, what in the world would it be like now, right? I mean, and finding the gratitude is important. So I'm grateful for every single thing that I've been through in my life, including all of the pain. Um, but maybe that is it. Maybe it is finding the gratitude in the small things every day.
Yeah. So gratitude is number 9 in the book, the ninth chapter here. Um, but you've said a lot of the things that are in this book, because you said about feeling free. That's a chapter in the being section of the book.
Yeah.
Living without fear is a huge one,
Yeah.
because we don't have a lot of mortal danger, and we live with a ton of fear.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, yes, we're constantly, I don't want to say, that's not the right word. Oftentimes, many people who are impacted by the news, or impacted by the pandemic and how it's impacting their lives, um, are in a state of fight or flight or freeze.
And this is really, really taxing to our whole system, to be in that, hyper vigilant, it's a very stressful mode to live in. And a lot of people live in that mode much of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I love the what you said about gratitude, because that is actually what has helped me, over and over again, in states of, back in 2008 when I couldn't get a job for 2 years, or when I was just freelancing and struggling, or when my child passed away, or when my marriage ended. You know, we all go through things. We all go through things. And every single instance of these, you know, intense moments that are, where people are filled with grief, and I'm not saying don't feel your grief, you must move through it. The only way out is through. But having a gratitude practice transformed my life.
I absolutely appreciate that. And first of all, I think that nobody gets an easy path from beginning to end. Nobody does. um, so we're all going to have challenges. We're all going to suffer financial issues, personal losses, whatever that may be. Everybody has those challenges. And it is a gratitude practice that can pull us through. There's a lot of great data on the physiologic impact as well as the emotional impact of a gratitude practice. And it's not hard to do.
Mm-mm.
It's really not hard to do.
It doesn't take a lot of time.
Doesn't take a lot of time. There's some beautiful small ways that you can build it into your life. You might, at the end of every day, have a small gratitude journal. You might write down 3 things for which you're grateful. And it could be that maybe somebody held a door open for you when you had heavy things in your arms. When you start to pay attention to the very small things for which you can be grateful, for kindnesses, for beauty, for whatever, you are internalizing an energy that supports your well-being. So I think that in addition to writing down a few things, and some people write 10, and it can be anything you want. It can be a morning practice, an evening practice. But I think that you can give it an extra little boost if you also say why you're grateful for that.
Yes, I
So
love it.
you just when you think about, oh, why am I feeling grateful about that? And you jot a few words down about that, it even increases the appreciation. And then the final step for me is to just put your hands on your heart and just breathe in after each one. And then you sort of make it part of your being, that gratitude.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's so important, and it's such a big um, game changer in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So many different ways. Yes, like you said, there's a ton of research on it. Um, yeah, you know, you mentioned something in your book about the magic, finding the magic in every day. And the way that I talk about this is synchronicities, right?
Hmm.
It's if you're paying attention, you can interact with your environment, um, and asking for signs for this or that, and kind of like plugging in to what's going on in the outer world, and that's using your intuition, right? And then you're starting to notice things, and it's not just, you don't just wait for it, right? You just wait to see what you're going to find, and then it doesn't happen like that. You have to go on with your day. And then as you go along your day and you forgot the intention you set, you will see, um, you'll see it. I mean, you just will. It's out there for us. The magic is out there for us to
Totally
experience.
agree.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely agree with that. It's part of being open. And what are we looking for? What are we considering as what we want to see? Even, when you focus on something, you see more of it. So if you focus on beauty or joy or whatever it may be, that's what will start showing up. And you're also keeping the channels open for the universe to give you what you're looking for, to bring you what you're desiring.
Yeah, allowing. I love that. What you focus on expands. I sometimes with my clients, I'll say, just come up with something random. Like, what do you see in your house right now? And they might say, well, I see a ceramic turtle. And I say, okay. So I want you to focus on that, and I want you to meditate on the turtle every day for 2 minutes. and then they go out into the world and they're seeing turtle this, turtle that, and say, see, you see how this works? It's like when you buy a new car. You buy a new car or you want a particular car, and then you see it everywhere, and it's
I
not just
know, isn't that, it seems so crazy, but it's true. It happens it happens that way. Yeah.
yes. And so that is a very clear indicator
Yeah.
that we are creating our experiences, and possibilities are everywhere. We
Yes.
just have to look for them.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I believe that you have a powerful tool that your clients swear by. So, and when people feel stuck and they need to generate new ideas, can you share with our viewers what that is?
Yes. Be delighted to tell you about the Discovery Dozen. It's a really simple tool. It's super easy to learn to use, and it has a lot of different ways that you can use it. But the essence of this exercise is that you start with a fill in the blank sentence, usually the beginning of a sentence with an ending to be completed, but sometimes there can be a blank in the middle. There's many ways that you can do this. So just an example. I
Okay.
was working with a client a couple of years ago, very, very idea rich person who said, I have to write an article on my blog and I have no ideas. It was like, I didn't believe that, but I could appreciate that she was feeling stuck. So we did a very simple example of a Discovery Dozen was, today I could write my blog post about. Sounds like a no-brainer. You've got to complete that sentence 12 times with 12 different answers. Today I could write my blog post about. And the first few are the top of mind things. And sometimes people say, oh, I'm at number 8 and I'm stuck. It's just keep going, keep going, keep going. You can be outrageous. You can be hilarious. Just keep writing. And when you write quickly is when you're tapping into your intuition. And so on a list like that, in this case, it was something pretty straightforward about her industry, but she was like, oh, look at number 9. Oh, look at number 11. And what we did in that case was I asked her to pick the 3 that were the most interesting to her, which she did. And then we did a Discovery Dozen about each of those ideas. Because if I was going to write about, and then what number 9 was, it could include. And then she wrote 12 answers to that. And she did that for 3 of them. And she had her next 3 articles completely outlined. Not that she was going to hit on all 12 points about those 3 topics, but there was more than enough material for her to shape a blog post for her audience. So it's a way to generate ideas instead of sitting there and trying to push them out, push them out, push them out, and force them out and get frustrated. You just play. You just write those 12 things. And, some of them could be, I always say, if you get stuck, just put blah, blah, blah and keep going, but just keep going. But sometimes you can use it in a way that's trying to discover what's on your mind. You might feel, I don't know, frustrated about something, but not really know what's bugging you. And it could be, I'm frustrated now because. And it could have to do with because my car didn't start as fast as I wished it would in the cold, or it could be any kind of thing that you put in there, but somehow in writing those 12 answers, what's really bugging you is going to show up and you'll start to notice it.
Yeah.
And so it's a way that we can generate ideas, we can mine our own hearts in a way that the delight or surprise or insight can show up that you don't get to in another way, or you don't get to as easily. And so I think of it as a very efficient way to do some discovery of whatever you're trying to discover. Let's say you had trying to figure out a way to have Thanksgiving in COVID that would make it special for your family who you can't be with physically. Say, boy, we could, to make this a memorable Thanksgiving, we could. And maybe you'll come up with all sorts of cool ideas. Actually, I might try that one. But I'm just saying, it's a way that if you realize that you've got this tool, one of the things that makes me very happy is when I'll be speaking to a client who will talk about a moment where she was feeling confused or stuck and said, I realized that I could do a Discovery Dozen. And so it becomes a tool that you realize you have at your disposal. And then I hear about the sentence that they constructed and the insights that showed up and how that helped them to resolve a problem or figure out the next best step or whatever it might be. And so I find it endlessly fascinating to see all the ways that I use it with people in conversation with them in my coaching, but how they choose to use it for themselves and how I sometimes dream up new ways to use it myself.
Wow, I love it. That's brilliant. Yeah. I mean, one time I did this, that was a long time ago. I was just writing down all the things I wanted to be when I grew up, but I
Mhm.
was grown up, but I was just writing
Right.
it. And I wrote for 30 minutes and by the time the timer went off, I was crying as I was typing because I was just releasing so much emotion. I was allowing myself to, it just started coming out. Like, and I didn't even realize that, all the things that I was writing that I wanted. And they started to come. So yes, that is such a powerful practice.
I'm a big believer in journaling too, but the thing about the Discovery Dozen is it's a little faster.
Yeah.
And you can get to things, and then you might get to something in your Discovery Dozen that you want to journal about for half an hour to really fully explore. That works
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I love that. So I'm going to be doing this Discovery Dozen
Wonderful. Wonderful.
on many, many things coming up, and I'll let you know how it goes.
I would absolutely love to hear that. Yeah.
Right. Rochelle, thank you so very much for taking the time to be here with me today and to tell the viewers all of this beautiful wisdom that you have within you. I appreciate
Thank
you.
you, Sarah. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, until we meet again, I'm sending you
Yes.
so much love and light.
I look forward to that.
Yes. Take care.
Okay. You too.